Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Show me what you're working with. Dude.
Let's go with all of those songs. I love it. Some newish school flavor for you, ladies and gentlemen. It's a I guess late night edition of Old School New School. I am Jude Allume. This the ever young, ever handsome Wil Masisak. How's it going, Will?
It's a couple of drinks into the evening, Jude, but it's perfect.
Wonderful.
For the show.
Should make for
I won't
a great
hold back
show.
because usually I'm holding back when I do the show.
Let it all out. We'll fix whatever we need to fix afterwards.
Yeah, that's
all
it.
right.
No, things are good.
Things are good.
Thanks for asking. I appreciate it. I know you don't really care, but I really appreciate you asking anyway.
I always care for you, Will. Come on, man. You're what makes the show run. Nonetheless, we do have. Granted, it's Thursday, and you're probably tired of hearing about Week 5 games, but we're gonna give some to you anyways.
We'll make it quick. We'll make it quick.
And then we'll preview some Week 6. Yeah.
Tell me about the Ravens. Are the Ravens the luckiest team in the NFL, or are they just really good?
Man, I want to say they're really good, but I don't really believe it. They are a good team. I don't know that they're really good, and I think it's also definitely some luck, especially when you look at how the Colts have been playing. Right now, they're a 1-4 team when everyone thought they'd be much better, even defensively, which is kind of been their bread and butter the last couple of years. It doesn't look like they're quite up to par with it this year. Nonetheless, that being said, you can't help but admire the fashion in which the Ravens came back during that Monday night game. First half, Lamar Jackson kind of giving his critics some things to talk about, he's not a true quarterback. He's not a polished pocket passer. And then second half, he just catches fire, and all of a sudden he throws for 400 yards in a game. It was unbelievable for everything that needed to happen to have happened that way. They go for it for the 2-point conversion to get it on 3 out of 4 or 2 out of 3. Get the ball first in overtime, go down and score. I mean, it's a great game for the Ravens, tough loss for the Colts. I mean,
okay, look, that's nice. All that stuff is true. I mean, they did what they had to do to win. But, first of all, let's just go back to last week for a second. Last week, they had what should have been a delay of game penalty that would have cost them the game against Detroit, who's arguably the worst team in the NFL. And then they came into this game, and they absolutely looked horrendous for the first 2/3 of the game, maybe until 5 or 6 minutes left in the third. And then it was really interesting things happened. The Colts kicker was injured and couldn't make extra points or field goals, and everything became an adventure for him. And the 3 of the 4 Colts top defensive backs, got injured and left the game.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, but even though the team was injured, you still had to step up and make plays, and they did. So I take nothing away from them making the plays when they had to make them. But man, that is just I don't know how sustainable that is to face a team with an injured kicker and losing their top 3 defensive backs in the middle of the game. Mm-hmm. That seems pretty crazy to me. I feel like, Lamar is really dangerous, and part of the reason that it's hard to keep that team down for the whole game is that if you let up your attention for just a second at containing him in the pocket, he'll just run all over you and make you look silly. So they still had to, even though they lost all of these defenders behind them, they still had to step up and try to contain Lamar Jackson. And that left openings for this dink and dunk game all the way down the field. Or if you try to step up, then you get burned for the deep ball. So, like I said, Baltimore gets credit. They did what they had to do. Lamar gets credit. He made the plays he had to make. But, yeah, they've had a rather fortunate set of circumstances, almost as fortunate circumstances as the bad circumstance of the injuries they had before the season started.
Right. I mean, just to touch on one of the things you said, like, yes, usually that is their MO, where you turn around and then they're just running the ball up and down on you and they find a way to get it back into the game. But this was done majority with Lamar passing the ball, making some throws downfield that were very accurate that we just hadn't seen from him before. I mean, the way he was finding Mark Andrews, the deep balls that he was throwing to Marquise Brown. I mean, it was unbelievable if you ask me, because these are throws I haven't seen Lamar do consistently. Definitely haven't seen him do much of it this year, but all of a sudden he says, you know what, I'm going to show you guys I'm a great passer. Granted, everything you say, absolutely correct. I guess we're just taking turns of saying the right things about this game. It's definitely going to be easier when you have 3 injured corners on the opposite team. But that being said, I mean, that's just the plate. That's the hand that you were given, and they did what they had to do. You can't take anything for granted. They did it. They said, you know what?
No, but
let's take our shots.
But just to put you this way, just as a wrap, if Indianapolis kicker just kicks normal field goals and maybe misses one, but basically makes most of the kicks, and their corners don't get hurt, do you think there's any chance Baltimore gets back in this game and wins the game?
There's a chance. I don't know if everything falls into place like it did for them.
They were down like 25-6 or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
they're not coming back from that.
It's definitely not. Because it looked easy. For some of the game, it looked easy for them. Just like, okay, we're going to get the ball, we're going to score. We're going to get the ball, we're going to score. We're going to get the ball, we're going to score. I think, it definitely does not happen. You're going to have better cornerback play. You're going to make a stop on some of those plays. Even the deep ball that I mentioned earlier to Hollywood Brown, the corner, he just got turned around on a double move. I don't know if your number one corner is going to let that happen to him, but there's no point in sitting there talking about if it was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. One thing I do want to mention, though, is we can't let Carson Wentz just completely not get any of the blame. I mean, your team is up 3 scores. I'm pretty sure at the end of the game, all you got to do is say is, all right, let's at least get this drive so we can go down, score a touchdown, or at least just kill the clock completely. They were not able to make that happen as an offense, especially when your head coach is an offensive-minded guy. You've got to be able to find ways to put teams away, especially when you have a 3-score lead. That's not something that, we can just let the Colts pass on, especially Carson Wentz and Frank Reich.
They would have, they tried twice to kick a field goal that had put them up 3 touchdowns.
Eventually you need to say, hey, our kicker, he's down and out. We need to go for it. We need to score touchdowns. And they didn't. I agree. No argument. Let's talk for a second about the Chiefs Chargers, because that was the other game this week. No, not Chiefs Chargers. It was Chargers Browns.
Sorry, Chargers.
Did you mean Chiefs Bills?
Yeah, both. Chargers, Browns, and Chiefs, Bills. Those are the 2 other games this weekend that really stood out to me. Sorry, yes, I conflated them into one story. Let's talk first about the Chiefs. Like, I know we talked in last week's show, and basically you said they're I think you said that the Chiefs couldn't possibly lose another game, but they'd figure out a way to bounce back. And I said I think their defense is bad enough.
I don't think I said that.
I think so. I think we're going to go back.
I don't think I said that. I don't think I said.
I know that I said I don't agree because of their defense is just so bad. But
I know you did say something about the defense, but I don't think I said. No. You know what I said? I said even in today's NFL, where it's offense first, I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to survive, even though they have a really good offense. And you just pointed out the defense, and you were making the point that even if you have a great offense, you've got to have at least a middle of the pack defense. And we both agreed that they definitely didn't have that. But we also both agreed that the Chiefs are a team that might be in trouble right now. I didn't say that the Chiefs are in the clear and they're going to make it. But I will say I did think the Chiefs would bounce back. They would find a way to win this game, not just because of them, but just because they kind of had that mental advantage over the Bills as well. And the Bills kind of beat some teams that aren't at the top of the NFL right now. So I felt like this would be a real measuring stick for them and they would fall just short. And I was wrong. They absolutely beat
the living daylights out of
Chiefs.
Kansas City.
It was like, I don't know, a kid in the grocery store when his mom told him not to touch nothing and he touched something, bringing up some memories for myself. Nonetheless, that's what it was like. They got beat, man. They got put it back. Put it back. But the thing in this one, though, it wasn't just the defense. It wasn't just the defense that, couldn't stop the Bills. Offensively, they didn't look good. Obviously, Edwards-Helaire, he goes down with an injury. That's going to be a tough pill for him to swallow. But Mahomes, he wasn't looking good. Tyreek Hill dropping balls. Kelsey kind of missing for some of that game. And it's just like, what's going on with this Chiefs team right now?
Yeah, I think they, the defenses are now adjusting. They're saying, okay, we're going to give you a lot of stuff, but I'll tell you what it's not going to be. We're not going to let Tyreek Hill beat us over the top, and we're going to try to do that while we pay attention to Travis Kelce. So, that they're like, if you want to try to have your quarterback run more, or you want to try to run the ball, or you want to try to throw to some of these other guys, that's fine with us because we don't think you can do it all the way down the field. So now Kansas City's forced to play this ball control game where they're trying to get first downs, which is very antithetical, I think, to what they've been doing for the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see how Kansas City adjusts to that, because that's what it is. It's like you're unstoppable, and the defenses figure it out a little bit, and they try something else and make you figure out what to do with that. So eventually I can see their offense getting there. Defensively, first of all, they play without Chris Jones, who's their best defensive player. So that didn't help matters. But on top of that, Daniel Sorensen out of college, I actually rather liked him as a prospect because he's a really good athlete. There's nothing wrong with him athletically, but he is especially this season. For years, Kansas City fans have started complaining that he's the weak link on their defense, but particularly this year, it's just the brain farts. If you're that good an athlete where you literally can run with Travis Kelce around the field, or not Kelce, you could run with a top tight end around the field, but you just suddenly decide the play is over before the whistle sounds and you let him go behind you, Dawson Knox. It's just there's nothing wrong with the physical part of your play. You're not getting beat by some superior athlete. You're just plain dumb. Right. And over again, they make these kinds of mistakes on defense that are just not doing them any favors, because it's one thing to have some trouble stopping the run or to get, cut death by 1,000 cuts, or you have trouble stopping third downs. No, they're getting beat with big plays that gash them and don't give their offense any chance to really get ahead in the game. I don't know. Kansas City's defense, I'm not really sure that that's solvable. And you would think anybody who's sort of still out there on the market might be interested in coming to Kansas City, but man, it's a mess.
I don't know that there's any piece out there right now that they can add to fix that defense. They might have to trade some pieces, especially if they want to attain those, championship aspirations that many people had for them and they for sure had for themselves.
Oh, we lost Jude, but I'm here, and I'll continue to talk about the next game, which would be the Cleveland Browns and the Los Angeles Chargers. One thing interesting about this game to me was I thought the Chargers would be susceptible to the run a little bit because they'd shown that in the previous game against the Raiders, but this was more of an issue for them than I ever expected it to be. I mean, Cleveland's excellent run game. There's no shame in giving up some runs to them, but it looked like the Chargers just basically couldn't stop it at all. And that really propelled this into being a different kind of game than I expected. More scoring, more big plays, and, more problems for the future for the Chargers. I'm not sure the Chargers could come back and give the Browns that much running room and win the game week after week after week. So it was amazing that they were able to come out from underneath that. Jude, I've just been talking about Chargers and Browns because I lost you and didn't know where else to go. But you're back. Anything else you want to say about the Chiefs? Now's your chance.
About the Chiefs, they get a nice chance to bounce back against the Washington team that's also very much lost in the sauce themselves. Offensively, I think they can bounce back. Defensively, though, just to kind of, what's the phrase? Keep on beating a dead horse. Whatever the case may be, defensively they've got to figure it out if they have any hopes of winning a championship, much less even making the playoffs.
And Buffalo's rolling now. We didn't really even mention Buffalo. We're talking about the Chiefs' problems, but some of the problems are because they faced Buffalo, who's just pretty much red hot right now.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is a Buffalo team that's they came out and had a stinker in that first game against Pittsburgh, and since then they just turned it up a notch, turned it up several notches, and they've been looking like the best team in the NFL. Much kudos to them, much kudos to Josh Allen. I feel like the first few games he was trying to force it because everyone was giving him that MVP hype, so I feel like maybe he was trying to play up to that, and now he's kind of just, I'm not going to force it, I'm going to let the game come to me, and we're seeing him have success much like we did last year.
Yeah, I feel like when they play, they use all the pieces that they have in Buffalo on offense. I think they can play with anybody. Of course, hard to judge their offense on playing against the Chiefs defense because the Chiefs defense is so bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is you look back now at the draft year that Josh Allen came out as a quarterback, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, all went in the first 10 picks or so of the draft. Is there any doubt right now that Josh Allen's the best of that bunch?
I mean, you'd have to really, really be a fanatic, be delusional, be on some sort of substance abuse to say that anybody but Josh Allen is the best QB out of that class right now.
Well,
he's played the best.
It was a trick question. It was a trick question for you because I don't know if you remember the guy that went at the end of the first round that year.
And
he wears
Lamar
8
Jackson.
for Baltimore. He wears 8 for Baltimore.
That did slip my mind. I'm still going to stick with Josh Allen. Stick with Josh Allen. I feel like
they're both really good players. I got to say,
they're athletes, but Josh Allen would be the better quarterback.
Yeah, because the thing is, Josh Allen he's not as scary a runner, but he's a very effective runner.
He's efficient, yeah.
And he's just Lamar changes the game because he's so scary for defenses. They have to pay instead of like rushing him, they have to kind of like stand in a defensive posture and wait for him to come to them. It's such a weird thing to watch, but he's just so, they're all desperately afraid of getting, beaten by him because of his speed. But Allen offers, I think, a little bit more overall. I don't know. That's a tough call. Like, would you trade Josh Allen for Lamar Jackson right now? I'm not sure you would.
I mean, I guess you could give Lamar the best value since they got him like the 30th pick of the first round. But, I absolutely guarantee you nobody in Buffalo is saying, man, we should have went with this guy instead. They're definitely happy with their quarterback for the future.
Yeah.
But game of the week, I feel like Chargers versus the Browns, a high-scoring, unbelievable game. And I think we saw another quarterback who may be putting his name in for MVP, who may be leading a team to what some people could consider the best team in the AFC as well. Justin Herbert, have a day, have a game.
Yeah.
I mean, they were down and they just never quit fighting. And he just looks like he's taken that next step. I know it's only the second season. I know you need like 3 or 4 seasons before you could really evaluate a quarterback. But I think the Chargers hit on this one and they got a really good one. I was absolutely blown away by how he played in that last game versus the Browns. On the contrary, I look at Baker Mayfield, who had a pretty good game, who threw for 300 plus yards. And I say, you're probably the best quarterback that the Browns have had in the last 20 plus years. But I still just don't see you as the guy. You're just not the guy. At the end of the game, they need points. They're not saying, hey, Baker, go out there and win this for me. They're still running the ball because they feel like, let's run the ball. We have a better chance to do that as opposed to letting Baker throw the ball around the field and winning this game for us. And that is so telling. Name one team. I feel like This might be the only team that'll do that. I feel like every other team in the NFL, games on the line, we're going to let our quarterback go out and win this game for us. And the Browns, Kevin Stefanski, offensive-minded guy, he's saying, you know what, let's run the ball and try to win. That's so telling of your quarterback right there.
You can tell what teams think of their quarterback by how they handle end-game situations. Browns had a lead. They were up by 1, I think, but I believe their defense had just given up 2 straight touchdown drives to the Chargers. So you're up by 1 late in the game, but your defense is basically toasted, right now. And you have 3rd and long and you run the ball. I mean, that to me is like you know that you need at least some first downs to keep the game, keep the Chargers from getting the ball back. And maybe you think you need some points. And you think the best solution on 3rd and long is to run the football. That makes no sense.
Draw at that, like.
Yeah, it makes sense because I've seen Baker Mayfield play, especially in the fourth quarters of games. But yeah, that's the difference. That was the difference in this game. The Browns' run game is damn near unstoppable for just about anybody. But
not on 3rd and long with the game possibly on the line.
No, but I'm saying if you have to be able to. That does great moving the ball between the 20s, and that does great when you have a big lead. But yeah, when you need to put up points to match a team that's also very good on offense and has a great quarterback. Yeah, it's not enough. It's not enough. So that to me is the tale of 2 teams going opposite directions in terms of how they feel about their quarterbacks. Yeah. And I mean, the Browns are going to beat a lot of people because if you can't stop the run and you don't really have that offense that can put up points against their team, then they're going to get you in that situation where you have to face those pass rushers from Cleveland trailing in the game. And, they're going to win a lot of games like that despite their quarterback play. But yeah, when they face a good team who can score against them and, or stop their run a little bit or slow the running game down, then yeah, it's going to be a different story. The Chargers.
Again, though, like this was not a bad game for Baker. It's just the end game situation was not a good look for him.
It's a difference between fantasy football and real football, Jude. I say this all the time, but Baker's numbers look fine on fantasy, sports. But in terms of the plays, the handful of plays you have to make to win the game, those don't always show up exactly in the stats. But you can tell it when you watch the game or you see how the coaches feel about it or whatever, or the rest of his teammates feel about it. They know. They know the guys in the league who make those plays, whether or not they look, great the rest of the time.
I wanted to compare him kind of like to an Andy Dalton from like when Andy was back with the Bengals. Like he's kind of a middle of the pack guy. You don't expect too much out of him, but here and there he'll surprise you and make some splash plays. But I don't even think I can do that because the Bengals back then, at the end of the game, they were definitely saying, hey, Andy, go out and do it for us. At least they gave Andy that opportunity. So I guess Baker's underneath what Andy Dalton was right there. I mean, if that's your ceiling, being a middle of the pack QB, like how many more seasons can you really have in this league? I mean,
the guy that he reminds me of in terms of his productivity is Carson Palmer. Yeah. I used to refer to Carson Palmer as Carson Card Table Palmer because he folded up at the end of the game. And that's the thing with Baker. It's not what he does in quarters 1 and 2. It's when the game situation dictates that he has to make a play, make a throw he's not comfortable making, find a way, to convert a 3rd down. That's just not his game. And it's, he has more fourth quarter interceptions than any quarterback in the league since he's been in the league. And there's something to that. Maybe that was an oddity for a game or two, and then it was a trend. But now I think it's a thing. Like he thinks it. They believe the team knows it. I don't know. I mean, I love their run game and their pass rush. So they get a lead and they run the football all over you. Yeah, they're gonna win a ton of games. But
I mean, they had a lead. They did run the ball.
Quarterback got to make plays, man. It doesn't have to be a lot.
That's right. That's the point I'm making. You can do everything right, but you still need your quarterback to make some plays for you. The last point I want to make about this too, you have one of the most enigmatic wide receivers who's ever played the game in Odell Beckham. For you to come away from that game where it was a shootout and you only threw him the ball 3 times, That's unacceptable, man. You've got to find a way to get your best players the ball. I understand Njoku was having a great game, but end of the game, he's a guy that can absolutely make a play for you. They need to find a way to fix it and fix it fast.
Well, they targeted him 3 times and he dropped one of them on 4th down.
He dropped one.
But you drop a ball on 4th down, it's like you're not going to inspire a lot of confidence to get more balls.
You caught the other 2. So, I mean, are you really just going to never throw the ball again? Come on now.
Yeah, maybe not. Well, look, we should move on, but just quickly before we do, you got anything to say about this whole John Gruden thing?
John, I mean, the popular thing to say right now is, he said the racial things and, nothing happened. And then he said the transphobic things, the misogynistic things, and now all of a sudden he's out of a job. I don't really want to touch on that. There are several more people who have more of a relationship, certainly, than I do with John Gruden. People of color who said, this guy's not a racist. And you know what? To an extent, I kind of understand it. You're saying things in a private email. You may be joking. I'm not saying that the joke is cool. The joke is, acceptable. But you may speak a little bit more candidly when you don't feel like anybody's watching. That's pretty much the only leeway that I'll give them, because you got to be an absolute idiot to go and say things through email when you know
NFL.com email address, on an NFL.com email address.
NFL is looking at everything. I mean, the fact that it made it to this point, I feel like it made it this long without having been released to the public, I feel like is very telling of the league. I don't know why now all of a sudden you would say it. It's not like you didn't know about it from before. So the NFL needs to take a little bit of flack from this as well. But nonetheless, I mean, he's out of a job right now. I didn't like that 10-year contract for him regardless. Maybe this is something that kind of benefits the Raiders. It sucks for the Raiders in the current, because now you kind of have to try and keep his offense, try and keep the ball rolling when really this is a chaotic situation that's unfolding. Nonetheless, I mean, the guy's out of a job. What more can we really say about it? I don't know if I would say rightfully so. I'm not privy to what exactly was said in these emails.
Had to happen.
But it's done. Yeah. It's happened, and it sucks for him, because he'll probably never coach again. He is one of the better coaches in the NFL. I don't think he'll even be able to go to ESPN and get a job doing, color analyst anymore either. I mean, it really sucks for you, but you dig your own bed. Sometimes you got to lay in it.
Yeah. I mean, when I said I thought the Raiders were on the verge of going down 2 weeks ago, I had no idea this is going to happen, but it's looking pretty salient right now.
What a difference 2 weeks makes, man.
Most definitely. Yeah. I mean, all I'll say about this is, it struck me that they have years and years and years of emails from everybody in the league. My guess is this is hardly the only example of something egregious.
Absolutely not.
So I agree with you that the timing of it, or just the fact that it happened to come out right now, is weird. I do know that, maybe it was leaked, something leaked that he said something about Goodell, which I find is an instant way to get, suddenly have problems with the league and have things come around and be a problem. So, yeah, probably wasn't the wisest to say stuff about the commissioner while he has all of your emails. But, yeah, I think, it is what it is, as they like to say. And he probably got what he needed to happen, whether or not he's a good guy or it's not really fair or whatever. It's like it still needed to happen, because there's no way that the league is going to let something like that go by. It's just too much of a bad look for the league. Anyway,
the powers that be simply do not want this show to happen.
Want it to be talked about, but here we are.
We're gonna make it happen regardless.
Listen,
we're gonna fight the good fight.
Fight the good fight by telling me a little bit about the week 6 in the NFL, or week 7. What's the next one? Is this week 6 coming up?
It's week 6.
Okay,
week 6.
Coming up. There's a couple of good games. I mean, we spent quite a bit of time talking about some of the teams that are involved in the better games this week, but let's just touch for a second on 2 teams we didn't talk about: the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears. Chicago now, fully moved away from the Andy Dalton era, and they're now embracing their young quarterback. almost said Lance Fields.
Justin
I
Fields.
put them together. Yeah, exactly. So Justin Fields and the Packers now apparently recovered from whatever was wrong with them at the beginning of the season. So the Packers are a favorite in this game, but do you think the Bears have now, like the Bears have always played Green Bay a little bit tough. What do you see happening in this game? Any chance for the Bears?
I don't think so. I get it. It's the Justin Fields era, and everyone's excited. They've kind of they haven't been on a winning streak, but they've won 2 of the last 3. So it's kind of like, yeah, this is our guy. But if you look at the quarterback play, it hasn't been that great. And you know what? It's just part of being a rookie. Like those first few games are not going to be easy for you. They're going to absolutely try and put them in positions to win like they did last week, where, it's kind of quick throws, easy reads. And if it's not there, tuck the ball and run. That's what I expect them to do. Unfortunately, Green Bay's defense is a little bit better than, a lot of people realize. They're not, top 5 or anything like that, but they're certainly not a team that's going to make a lot of mistakes and let you get away with making mistakes. Unfortunately for Justin Fields, he's a rookie. Unfortunately for rookie quarterbacks, they tend to make mistakes, and Green Bay will absolutely capitalize on those mistakes. Is it going to be a close game? I don't know if it'll be close. I don't think it'll be a blowout because Chicago's defense is good enough to give Aaron Rodgers some fits, but Aaron Rodgers is still a bad man. As Stephen Smith often said, he's a bad man. So even if they do give him fits, he'll find a way to figure it out, or, at least figure it out for a couple of drives. And I think really in a game against this Justin Field, if this is the kind of offense we're going to see them play, which is basically what we saw last week, if this is what they're going to do going forward, all Green Bay needs to do is maybe 3 scores, and that'll be enough to win the game for them. Yeah,
I think it'll be the Bears' best chance is to make it sort of an ugly game. I'm not sure if they can. I mean, they generally do against the Packers, and the Packers figure out some way to win it at the end. So I feel like it still follows the same formula, even though I'm glad that Justin Fields is getting his shot. Yeah, so I'm with you. I think the Packers are still a little bit too much for the Bears to deal with in a game where you might have to score some points. Eventually, they could get there, and they definitely looked pretty good last week, better than expected. But, yeah, I'm going to slow the roll a little bit on all of the rookie quarterbacks. It's that time of the year where they're all starting to be like, oh, my God, like, what am I, like their confidence is totally frayed right now. They came in with all these high expectations, and then they've seen 5 weeks of the league, and they're just like, oh, man, this is hard. And I still have another 10 weeks, 15 weeks to go, whatever.
I mean, it's got to suck for Fields because he went to Ohio State, where it's literally just like track meet all day. Just throw the ball up, let your receiver run under it, and score 50 points a game. Certainly not seeing those kind of results in the NFL.
Really hard to judge quarterbacks in college. Stop me if you've heard me say this a million times before. It's hard to judge them in college when they're playing on a loaded team. Because they just don't face the same kind of pressures, literally or figuratively, that they do in that situation. I mean, the latest example for me is, I like Matt Corral. I mean, I think he does a lot of stuff really, really well. And I'm sure when we get to talking around the draft, he'll be somebody whose name comes up a lot. But, he's basically throwing to guys who are open, and he's got a crew to throw it to. They all make great plays for him on the other end. And pretty much he's now gotten into that Johnny Manziel mentality of like, oh, that's my guy's one-on-one. I'm throwing it up because, most of the time that's going to work out for him. And if he doesn't feel like doing that, then he's going to run the football and he's great at it. But, when it comes to the NFL, like you just have to be able to do a little more than that, play on time and make the throws, make the reads and the throws in a certain amount of elapsed time that's shorter. It condenses time for you. And I think for Fields and the other young quarterbacks, it just takes a little while to get used to that way of playing football. How about your Kansas City Chiefs, the Washington football team? You touched on it earlier. I'll make it short and sweet. We don't have to talk about it all day. Do you think the Chiefs are going to continue to sink down the hole, or do you think they can right the ship?
I think they can right the ship. I'll say that just based off the strength of who they have at quarterback, the most important position on the team, and who they have at head coach. Andy Reid, a really good football coach. We've seen him have numerous seasons of wins, dating back numerous seasons of successful playoff-bound teams, and that's dating back to his time with the Eagles. The defense is what the defense is. I fully anticipate that they acknowledge that it's not good. They acknowledge that they need to find a way to make it at least sustainable, to make it at least a defense that will give your team a chance to win. So yeah, you might let them score, but at some point you just find a way to make a play. They have some players. Eventually they'll get Chris Jones back. They still have Tyrann Mathieu. They still have, is Frank Clark playing?
Yeah, he had a costly
so they still have Frank Clark
penalty. Yes, so I know he's playing.
Yeah. They've got some pieces, so it's not like they're completely devoid of talent on the defensive side of the ball. But what I also anticipate is that they'll need to step it up offensively, and they'll need to really tell themselves, like, okay, if we're going to win this game, we're going to have to put up some points, and they're certainly capable of doing so. Like you mentioned before, though, they're going to have to find a way to score points without completely relying on Tyreek Hill. Teams have adjusted to the fact that that's the fast guy, that's the deep shot guy. We need to completely take him out the game so he has to look other places. And then they say, okay, well, once we do that, we know he looks to Travis Kelce. So if you could take those two guys out of the picture for them, they need to find a third guy that's going to step up, whether it be a Pringle, whether it be a Mecole Hardman. It has to be someone who steps up and can make a play for
It's not absurd to think that it might be Josh Gordon, but yeah. What I'll say about this game is the problem for the Chiefs is that the Redskins are basically built on defense to do exactly what Buffalo did, which is rush four and still get pressure on the quarterback and be able to let guys go back in coverage and figure out a way to take away Tyreek Hill. They can do that defensive game. So my thinking on this is it's a very tough test for the Chiefs because they're going to have to score in long drives rather than in big strikes, which keeps the score down, which puts less pressure on Washington's offense to have to score a lot of points. They just have to be efficient with how they do it. And, their quarterback has faced some trouble when he's been under a lot of pressure, but the Chiefs pass rush really hasn't done much lately. I think this is going to be a very close game. I like the Chiefs maybe to pull it out, but I think there might be more of a challenge for them than we're thinking.
I like the Chiefs to pull it out because, granted, that Washington front four is absolutely fearsome and they can definitely get to the quarterback. But what they don't have is the cornerbacks that the Bills have. So I don't know that they'll be able to contain Tyreek as well as the Bills did. And in addition to that, the defense kind of gets a break too, because this is also not the offense that the Bills have. This is an offense that's kind of middle of the pack. Sometimes they can run the ball. Sometimes they couldn't run a ball. I don't know what kind of easy ball running example I can give, but the point is they can't run the ball all that well at times. Passing the ball, sometimes Heineke looks great. Sometimes we can understand why he was never really given a shot at being a starting NFL quarterback. I mean, it's an offense that I don't really know what their identity is. And sometimes it looks like, hey, they can keep up with anybody. But most of the time it looks like, all right, can these guys get 2 scores this week? I mean, 2 scores in the NFL is kind of like, you need that it's not even a bare minimum. If you average 2 scores, you're going to lose a lot of games. Yeah. And I don't know that Washington is capable of doing more than 2 scores.
Hey, the Chiefs defense could make anybody capable of scoring more than 2 games.
Yes, they can. But they also get kind of a break because you don't have to worry about facing a juggernaut this week.
Yeah, well, we shall find out. Quickly, 2 more good games to talk about. Chargers and Ravens. We've already talked about the Chargers and how good they are, and the Ravens about how resilient they've been. So this is the hot team meeting the resilient team that's pulled their ass out of the fire the last 2 weeks. I'll start. To me, the trouble with this game for Baltimore is there's no matter what you can say about their offense coming back in that game, their defense got shredded. Their defense got shredded in that game by
until they finally found a way to step it up in the second half.
The Colts, I don't think are very good on offense, and they just absolutely shredded them. The Chargers are a different animal than the Colts on offense. So to me, your big problem for Baltimore is you got to put up some points. This is the same thing we just went back to with teams facing the Chiefs. like, you're going to have to put up some points, or you have to figure out some way to like really, really stop them. But man, I don't see Baltimore stopping the Chargers very much. And it's hard for me to imagine Baltimore, with the being shorthanded in the run game, and what they looked like at the beginning of the game against a competent defense. I think that this is, it's a nice matchup on paper, but I think the Chargers are a much better team than Baltimore.
Much better team. I kind of disagree. You're allowed to have a bad game here and there, and they had a bad half. I wouldn't say they had a bad game.
Did you see the Detroit game? I mean, like it's 2 weeks in a row, really.
The Detroit game, I mean, Detroit. That was 2 weeks ago, I believe. No, they had the fifth. Yeah, no. No, you're right, because the weekend between they played Denver and ran the ball out of the victory formation. Yeah. That was
2 weeks
an
ago.
Interesting one too. But I mean, even in that Detroit game, it wasn't like the offense was bad. It was just like they let Detroit hang with them. So that was more bad on the defense than anything. But Jared Goff is still a pretty decent quarterback. So it's not like they just let a team of scrubs absolutely, keep up with them. Like it's a decent Super Bowl, well, not Super Bowl winning, but Super Bowl competing quarterback that, kept his team in the game. This is early in the season when they were super scrappy. The Lions are still a super scrappy team, as a matter of fact. And you know what? It's not absurd that they made it a game with the Ravens. Do I think the Ravens are going to win this game? They've got a chance. It's not
at home and
impossible.
And they managed.
But they need to play a much better game. That's absolutely hands down. There's no way around that. You cannot have a game like last week where first half you just are completely uninterested, can't do anything on offense, can't do anything on defense. That won't cut it against this Chargers team. But you can kind of just say, hey, let's continue what we did in that second half. And all of a sudden, this is a Ravens team that I'm saying, can anybody really stop them?
Yeah, they're not.
If Lamar Jackson can consistently pass for 400 plus yards, I'm just talking because I really don't anticipate that's going to happen. But in a world where it did, and that defense comes out and they absolutely shut down the other team, I mean, that's a scary Ravens team.
No, if your defense has a mediocre to poor pass rush, and you have some problems at defensive back with guys being injured or just don't have the talent, of course he can do that. Lamar Jackson can do that, but it's not remotely what the situation is this week. So, I just don't think he's shown he can do that consistently against really good defenses. I think in general,
but is that Chargers defense a really good defense?
Yeah. No, I
don't think so. Look what happened last week. I mean, the Browns threw the ball all over them.
Yeah, although I do think there was
Baker Mayfield threw for 300 plus all over them, and Njoku had 145 yards on them. He hasn't had 145 yards on anybody, and all of a sudden he just exploded.
Maybe their Chargers defense is not as good as I thought. I think that was more of an anomaly game for them because they had so much trouble stopping the run. But Baltimore's running game is not quite the same. It's not like they line up to hand it to their halfback and just try to kill you. It's literally all about Lamar Jackson escaping. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how they deal with that. Every team's been dealing with Lamar Jackson containing a little bit differently. But yeah, I suppose that's the hope for the game.
I think it'll be a close game. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but it's a coin flip for me as far as who can win this game. If I had to pick somebody right now, it would be the Chargers. But I think it would be. I definitely think it'll be a good game and a close game.
What about one last intra-conference matchup, and that's the Arizona Cardinals at the Cleveland Browns. We've talked about the Browns a good bit, so we know what their strengths and weaknesses are. And Arizona has been your team through and through. So I'm just going to ask you a real simple question: what can Arizona do stopping the run against Cleveland? Because to me, that's where this game sort of starts.
They have a staunch front seven. I like their linebackers. I like their front four. I feel like they've definitely got the pieces to be able to at least slow down that run for them. And then, you've got Buda Baker, who certainly has no problem coming down into the box and making a tackle when he needs to. I don't think they have an issue stopping the run at all. It's just a matter of will they get it done? Not can they get it done, but will they get it done? They have the pieces. They have the heart. And you know what? They play they play up and down. I'll say that. Like last week, I didn't anticipate the low scoring game that happened, but nonetheless, if they can stop Cleveland from running the ball, they'll absolutely win this game. If they can hold them to like under 120 yards, I think this will be a blowout, because with Cleveland, if you can't run the ball, they're not going to have much success through the air. They like to set up the run, and then after they set up the run, they run a bunch of play action passes. If you can't run the ball, no, you're not fearing anybody. Baker Mayfield, I'm sorry, best quarterback Cleveland's had in the last 20 years. He's not putting fear in the hearts of anybody right now, unless he can come out and have a statement game and say, hey, I'm an NFL caliber quarterback. I'm going to be able to throw deep downfield whenever I want. He missed a lot of deep throws. Sorry, besides the point. Nonetheless, unless he can do that, this shouldn't be a game for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I agree. That I think the Cards are a pretty serious favorite. I expect them to win. To me, it's less about how many yards you give Cleveland's running game and more about how many times you let them run the ball into the end zone. So what I'll say is, if they can keep the rushing touchdowns to maybe 2 in this game, or maybe even 3, then I think Arizona can win this game, because I believe their offense is sort of a good matchup against what Cleveland does on defense. They're not really, Cleveland is like, you're a pocket passing team that doesn't run the ball much. I think Cleveland's defense can absolutely kill you, especially if they get ahead. But if you have a mobile quarterback and you are not as intimidated by pass rush, then, and you can run the ball a little bit when you need to. I feel like Arizona just does more. They have more to offer, more balance on offense compared to what the Browns do. Even though the Browns will throw for a lot of yards, let's talk about the scores. They really need their running game to not just put up yards between the 20s, but actually finish the deal. If they can do that consistently, then they can beat anybody, including Arizona, I think is very, very good. And, Arizona being undefeated, they're going to lose a game here or there that you didn't expect them to lose, or they shouldn't lose on paper. So you never quite know. But I don't know that this is the week. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, as cliche as it does sound, any given Sunday.
Last word, my friend. We're already to that point. We made it to the end.
All right. No more technical difficulties. Last word, unfortunately for the Seahawks, quarterback Russell Wilson injured his hand on a play, throwing the ball. His hand kind of got intertwined with Aaron Donald's arm for him. Nonetheless, he's going to be out for at least the next 4 weeks, 4 weeks being the best possible scenario.
More like 8.
For me, this is kind of like stick a fork in them. They're done. I've seen Geno Smith play, and I'm sorry. Like, maybe he'll get a game, but this looks like 0-4 or 1-3 at best for them in the next couple of weeks.
I think Geno is one of those. He's a good backup quarterback in that he can come in one game and actually play okay for you. So, like, you bring him in a game where you're up by a touchdown, he's going to figure out a way to bring it home. He's not bad, but he's not a guy that's going to win 4 or 5 weeks in a row for you.
No, sir.
So I feel like, when they're matched up against the team that they should beat, maybe he gets to there. But their defense is right there with the Chiefs in terms of being really, really bad. The fact that Russell Wilson has put up quietly an amazing start to the season is the only reason that they're not in the basement looking up at most teams, because they're with just that defense. So it's I don't know, the game with Pittsburgh. It's like, if we want to believe Pittsburgh is sort of woken up a little bit as well, much like Green Bay did, then not much of a shot for Seattle playing Pittsburgh at night on at a night game Sunday under Mike Tomlin at home. The Steelers are they've lost 4 times in the history of the franchise or something. So that's probably not the best situation for Geno Smith.
Against a really good defense. Let's not forget that part either.
Although, speaking of overrated defenses, I think the Steelers defense might be a little bit overrated right now.
I don't think they're overrated. I think they just haven't had the support from the offense that they've needed. And then once your defense is just out there for way more plays than they need to be, they're bound to just get tired.
But how did you explain last week? The Steelers had so many plays on offense compared to Denver, and it just got to the end of the game. The Steelers just could not stop them the last couple of drives of the game. It's just I don't know. I feel like they really missed Stephon Tuitt. And they're at a point right now where they just can't deal with any injuries in the secondary, like they were missing Cam Sutton last week. Anytime they're missing a guy or two and they don't have two, they're vulnerable, compared to where they were the last 2 or 3 years.
Defense completely.
The last 2 or 3 years, man, top 5 defense, but not right now. So there you go. There's my last word. Jude, if you people listening, if you like the show and you like Jude and his hairdo, if you like his appearance and you think he's a smooth operator, the chance to show is to hit the like button on Facebook or subscribe to the podcast or just become sort of a friend of the show. And then every time we appear, magically you'll get a notice that says, hey, Old School, New School Football is on the air. So anyway, thank you to all of you who have done that already and continue to listen. Really appreciate you. Jude, I appreciate you too. And
appreciate you.
Jude Allume, I'm Wil Masisak. This is Old School, New School Football. We'll catch you next week and talk about
I appreciate the taco meat.
The taco meat. Yeah, there you go. Talk to you next week on Old School, New School Football after another week of NFL. Cheers, ciao. Don't send any emails, Jude. Just don't hit send. Don't hit send.